The sky above Colony Theta 7 glimmered under the ominous light of alien patrol ships, their engines resonating with a low, relentless thrum. On the surface, the once thriving human settlement was reduced to a smoldering ghost town. Buildings lay in ruins, smoke curling into the atmosphere as the acrid stench of destruction hung heavy in the air. Hidden in the shadow of an overturned transport vehicle, Captain Ilara Voss clutched her communicator, her breath measured despite the chaos around her. "Do we have eyes on the kids?" Ilara's voice was a low growl, her tone a razor-thin thread of control. "Negative," Lieutenant Marco Rains whispered back through the static. "Thermal scans show they've been moved underground. The bastards are using the old mining tunnels." Ilara closed her eyes briefly, rage simmering beneath her disciplined exterior. The alien invaders, known as the SCIFI, were notorious slavers. When they raided Theta 7, they targeted the settlement's most vulnerable inhabitants, the children. The SCIFI had made one fatal mistake though. They underestimated humanity's resolve. "They want leverage," Ilara muttered, her voice laced with cold resolve. "But they're about to ignite a war they'll never recover from." Rains, regroup at Rally Point Echo. "We're going in." The crackle of affirmation from Rains was barely audible over the distant drone of SCIFI patrols. Ilara slid the communicator into her vest and signaled to her squad. The four of them moved silently through the rubble, shadows among shadows. Each carried the grim determination of warriors with nothing left to lose. The descent into the mining tunnels was treacherous. The narrow shaft reeked of damp earth and rust, the only illumination provided by the faint, flickering glow of their headlamps. Ilara's heart pounded as they approached the central chamber, where the thermal scans indicated the children were held. A faint hum, alien machinery, echoed through the tunnels, growing louder with every step. "Visual confirmation," Rains whispered, raising a fist to halt the squad. 2 guards at the entrance. Armed. Standard SCIFI plasma rifles. Ilara nodded, gesturing for her sniper, Corporal Kira Solon, to take position. Kira's rifle emitted a faint, almost imperceptible hiss as she lined up her shot. 2 muffled pops followed, and the guards crumpled to the ground without a sound. "Clear," Kira confirmed. The squad moved swiftly, stacking up at the entrance to the chamber. Ilara peered inside, her stomach twisting at the sight before her. Dozens of children, their faces pale with fear, were huddled in a corner, their small bodies trembling. A towering SCIFI overseer stood nearby, its grotesque form illuminated by the cold, artificial light of alien tech. Its segmented limbs twitched as it barked commands into a device strapped to its chest. Ilara's jaw tightened. "On my mark," she whispered. "Stun grenades first. Rains, Kira, cover fire. Let's end this fast." The explosion of sound and light was deafening. Stun grenades erupted in bursts of blinding brilliance, and the chamber descended into chaos. Ilara surged forward, her rifle spitting precise bursts of fire. The SCIFI overseer roared in fury, its limbs flailing as it tried to shield itself. Ilara aimed for the device on its chest, a critical weak point. "Device neutralized," she shouted as sparks flew from the shattered machinery. The overseer lunged, its claw-like appendages slicing through the air. Ilara sidestepped the strike with practiced ease, her body moving with the precision of a seasoned warrior. Dropping low, she unleashed a volley of fire, her shots striking the alien with unerring accuracy. Behind her, Rains and Kira picked off SCIFI reinforcements attempting to storm the chamber. "We're not leaving without those kids," Ilara yelled, her voice cutting through the din. The tide began to turn. The overseer's movements grew sluggish, ichor oozing from its wounds. With a final guttural screech, it collapsed, its massive form hitting the ground with a resounding thud. "Move, move," Ilara barked, rushing to the children. Her voice softened, her words a lifeline in the storm. "You're safe now. We're getting you out of here." The smallest of the group, a girl no older than 6, looked up at her with tear-streaked cheeks. "Are the monsters gone?" she whispered. Ilara's chest tightened. "They're gone," she said firmly. "But we need to move now. Can you be brave for me?" The girl nodded, clutching Ilara's hand as the squad began escorting the children out of the chamber. The air was thick with tension, every step a gamble. The SCIFI wouldn't let this go unanswered. As they reached the surface, the horizon was alight with the glow of incoming enemy ships. A deep, resonating voice boomed over the comm channels, its alien cadence twisted with fury. "Pitiful humans. Return what belongs to us or be obliterated." Ilara glanced at the children, their fragile forms huddled together, and then at her squad. Her gaze hardened. "You've made one mistake," she muttered, activating her comm link to the resistance fleet overhead. "You dared take our children." Above, the human fleet's engines roared to life, their gleaming hulls cutting through the void like unyielding harbingers of retribution. Ilara raised her rifle, her voice resolute. "No mercy." The roar of the human fleet's engines echoed across the barren landscape of Colony Theta 7 as the resistance forces began their counteroffensive. The skies lit up with streams of plasma fire and the dazzling bursts of impact detonations, each explosion a declaration of defiance against the SCIFI. Ilara's squad pressed forward, leading the rescued children toward an extraction point while chaos unfolded above and around them. "Rain's status report," Ilara shouted over the deafening barrage. "Evac shuttles are 5 clicks out," Rains responded, his voice tight. "But the SCIFI are sending reinforcements. We've got ground forces moving in fast." 3 minutes? Ilara cursed under her breath. 3 minutes felt like an eternity with the children's lives hanging by a thread. She glanced at her squad, their faces grim but determined. "We hold the line," she ordered. "Kira, take the high ground. Rains, you're with me. We need to delay them until the shuttles arrive." The squad moved into position, setting up a defensive perimeter around the extraction point. Kira scrambled up the skeletal remains of a collapsed communications tower, her sniper rifle at the ready. Rains positioned himself behind a makeshift barricade of debris, his plasma rifle trained on the approaching enemy. Ilara knelt beside him, her rifle gripped tightly in her hands. "Here they come," Kira's voice crackled through the comms. "Eyes on SCIFI infantry 20 units. Heavy armor and, damn it, they've got a walker." Ilara's heart sank. The SCIFI walker was a towering monstrosity of metal and death, its 4 spindly legs moving with eerie precision. Armed with twin plasma cannons and a missile pod, it was a weapon of pure devastation. "Prioritize the walker," Ilara commanded. "Kira, aim for the joints. Slow it down. Rains, keep the infantry off her back. I'll cover the children." The first shots rang out as Kira's rifle spat precision fire, each round aimed at the walker's vulnerable leg joints. Sparks flew as her shots found their mark, but the massive machine pressed on, its cannons swiveling toward the squad's position. Bolts of plasma seared the air, carving glowing furrows into the ground and forcing Ilara and Rains to dive behind jagged debris for cover. "Shuttles are 2 minutes out," Rains called out, firing bursts of plasma at the advancing SCIFI infantry. His shots tore through the enemy ranks, but for every SCIFI that fell, 2 more seemed to take its place. Ilara gritted her teeth. "Kira, status?" "Still targeting the walker, but it's adapting," Kira replied. "Its armor's too thick. I need more firepower." Ilara's mind raced. She scanned the battlefield, her eyes landing on a supply crate marked with the universal symbol for explosives. "Rains, cover me," she barked, breaking into a sprint toward the crate. Searing plasma bolts sliced through the air, singeing the ground as Ilara sprinted, her boots pounding against the blackened earth. She reached the crate, yanking it open to reveal a cache of high-yield grenades. Grabbing as many as she could carry, she turned back toward the battlefield, her gaze locking onto the walker. "Kira, keep its attention on you," Ilara ordered, her voice firm. "I'm taking it down." "Copy that," Kira said, her shots intensifying as she peppered the walker with fire. The machine turned its cannons toward her position, unleashing a barrage of plasma that obliterated the upper half of the tower. Kira leapt clear, her breath hitching as the structure crumbled behind her. She hit the ground hard, rolling to a stop with a sharp gasp of pain, but quickly steadied herself. Ilara seized the moment. She sprinted toward the walker, weaving through a hailstorm of enemy fire. She ducked low, weaving through a chaotic maze of smoldering wreckage until she found herself directly beneath the towering machine. With practiced precision, she armed the grenades and hurled them upward, each one finding a weak point in the walker's undercarriage. "Fire in the hole," she shouted, diving for cover. The grenades detonated in a series of thunderous booms, the shockwaves rattling the ground. The walker let out a mechanical screech as its legs buckled, collapsing in a heap of twisted metal. The remaining SCIFI infantry hesitated, their advance faltering without the walker's support. "This is our chance," Ilara yelled. "Push forward." The squad surged ahead, their firepower overwhelming the disorganized SCIFI. Rains cut down the last of the infantry with a series of well-placed shots, clearing the path to the extraction point. "Shuttles inbound," Kira called out, her voice filled with relief. The deep hum of engines reverberated through the battlefield as the evac shuttles descended, their sleek forms gleaming like lifelines in the chaos. The children were ushered aboard first, their frightened faces beginning to show glimmers of hope. Ilara and her squad followed, covering the retreat until the last possible moment. As the shuttle doors sealed shut, Ilara allowed herself a brief moment of relief. But her reprieve was short-lived. Through the viewport, Ilara's gaze locked onto the Skalth fleet in the distance. Their ships moved with calculated precision, forming a looming wall of destruction that pulsed with menace. "Captain," Rains said, his tone grim as he glanced back at the viewport. "They're regrouping. They're not going to stop, are they?" Ilara's gaze hardened. "No," she said, her voice resolute. "But neither are we." The shuttle lifted off, its engines roaring as it climbed toward the stars. The battle was far from over, but Ilara knew one thing for certain: humanity would never bow. Not while they still had the strength to fight. The evac shuttle cut through the atmosphere, its engines thrumming with effort as it ascended toward the human fleet. Inside, the rescued children huddled together, their small faces a mix of exhaustion and fragile hope. Ilara stood at the viewport, her hand braced against the cool glass. The looming wall of Skalth warships drew closer, their sinister outlines bristling with weapons. Her jaw tightened. "The Skalth are forming a blockade," Rains said, his voice edged with urgency. "They mean to pin us down." "They won't succeed," Ilara replied, her voice steady but fierce. "Not while we still have a fight in us." Kira limped over, her rifle clutched tightly despite her uneven gait. "Captain, what's the move? We can't outgun that fleet in this tin can." Ilara turned, her gaze sweeping over the children and her battered squad. "We're not. We're going to break through." Before anyone could respond, a crackling voice came over the comm system. It was Commander Briggs, leader of the human fleet. "Shuttle Theta, we have your position. Hostile vessels are closing in fast. We're deploying interceptors to cover your approach, but you'll need to punch through their outer defenses." "Understood, Commander," Ilara replied. "What's our window?" 3 minutes tops, Briggs said. "We'll try to draw their fire, but you'll be on your own until you reach the cruiser." The line went dead, leaving a heavy silence in the shuttle. Ilara turned to the pilot. "Get us to that cruiser no matter what it takes." The pilot nodded, gripping the controls with white-knuckled determination. The shuttle surged ahead, its engines thrumming like a heartbeat in the chaos as it raced toward the fleet. Around them, the void of space erupted into chaos. Human interceptors streaked past, their sleek forms engaging the Skalth fighters in a deadly ballet of plasma fire and explosions. "Here they come," Rains shouted, pointing to a cluster of Skalth fighters breaking off to intercept their shuttle. The alien ships moved with uncanny precision, their weapons charging as they closed the distance. "Kira, take the dorsal turret," Ilara ordered. "Rains, get on the ventral guns. Keep them off us as long as you can." The two soldiers sprang into action, manning the shuttle's defensive turrets. The small craft shuddered as its shields absorbed the first barrage of enemy fire. Kira's turret whirred to life, spitting streams of plasma at the incoming fighters. One exploded in a dazzling burst of light, but more replaced it, their movements relentless. "Defensive systems down to 60%, the pilot called out, his voice tight with strain. "We won't hold much longer. Hold them off." Ilara barked, strapping herself into a seat beside the children. She glanced at them, her expression softening for a moment. "Stay brave. We're almost there." One of the children, a boy with wide, tear-filled eyes, clutched her arm. "Will we make it?" Ilara's heart clenched, but she forced a smile. "Yes, we will. I promise." The shuttle shuddered under the impact of another plasma barrage, its shields flaring in a desperate attempt to hold. A cascade of sparks erupted from the console, drawing a sharp curse from the pilot. "They're locking onto our engines?" "Not on my watch," Rains growled, unleashing a relentless stream of fire at the nearest fighter. His shots clipped its wing, sending it spiraling out of control. "We're 2 minutes out," the pilot announced, sweat dripping down his temple. "But we're not going to make it unless we lose some of this heat." Ilara scanned the viewport, her mind racing. The cruiser was within sight, its massive hull illuminated by the glow of the battle. But the Skalth fighters were closing in fast. An idea struck her, bold and dangerous. "Kira, Rains, listen up," she shouted. "We're going to bait them. Rains, fire a sustained burst at the fighters to our starboard. Kira, target the lead ship to port. We need to create an opening and slip through while they're distracted." Both soldiers hesitated for a split second before nodding. "Copy that," Rains said grimly. "Let's make it count." The shuttle's turrets roared to life, unleashing a furious barrage of fire. The Skalth fighters reacted as expected, focusing their attention on the apparent threat. Ilara seized the moment, yelling to the pilot, "Now! Full speed ahead!" The shuttle's engines roared in defiance, pushing the craft through the narrow gap between the distracted fighters. The cruiser grew larger in the viewport, its hangar bay radiating hope like a sanctuary in the chaos. But just as they approached, a massive Skalth warship moved to block their path, its cannons glowing ominously. "They're going to fire," the pilot yelled. Ilara's thoughts raced like wildfire. Unbuckling herself, she seized a spare plasma rifle and secured a tether around her waist. "Open the rear hatch." "What? Captain, that's suicide," Rains shouted. "Just do it," she snapped, her eyes blazing with determination. As the hatch hissed open, the void of space tugged at her, her tether straining as she anchored herself to the shuttle. Bracing against the windless void, she aimed the rifle at the warship's exposed sensor array. Her shots were steady, each one chipping away at the delicate equipment. Bright arcs of energy burst from the warship's sensor array, its cannons faltering as their targeting systems disintegrated into a cascade of failures. "Close it up and punch it," Ilara shouted, hauling herself back inside as the hatch sealed shut. The shuttle veered toward the cruiser, slipping past the disabled warship and into the safety of the hangar bay. A ripple of cheers filled the shuttle as it touched down, the children holding onto one another, their tears a mix of relief and exhaustion. Ilara slumped against the bulkhead, her breathing ragged but her resolve unbroken. Outside, the battle still raged, but they had made it. "For now. We're safe," she said softly, her voice carrying a weight of both triumph and exhaustion. "But this isn't over." The hangar bay of the human cruiser was alive with activity as the evac shuttle came to a grinding halt. Medics rushed to assist the children, their gentle reassurances mingling with the distant rumble of battle reverberating through the hull. Ilara's gaze lingered on the children for a moment, their safety her only solace in the chaos. Then she turned to Briggs, her resolve sharpening into an unyielding edge. Ilara staggered out, her steps unsteady but her eyes blazing with determination. Commander Briggs met her halfway, his face etched with grim resolve. "You made it," he said, his voice cutting through the chaos. "But the Skalth fleet isn't letting up. They're throwing everything they have at us." Ilara nodded, brushing soot from her face. "We've bought some time, but we're not out of this yet." "What's the plan?" Briggs gestured toward the command center at the far end of the hangar. "We're preparing a counteroffensive. If we can cripple their flagship, we might force a retreat. But it's a long shot." The distant rumble of the ongoing battle seemed to punctuate his words. "If we can cripple their flagship, we might force a retreat. But it's a long shot." "Long shots are all we've got," Ilara replied, her tone steely. "Where do you need me?" Inside the command center, holographic displays lit up the room, each one depicting a sector of the battlefield. The Skalth fleet loomed ominously on the screens, their ships systematically pounding the human defenses. Briggs pointed to the flagship, a behemoth bristling with weaponry and shielded by layers of armor. "That's our target," he said. "We've identified a weak point in their shield generator, but we'll need to get a strike team on board to take it out. It's a suicide mission." Ilara's jaw tightened. "I'll go. My squad's ready." Briggs hesitated, then nodded. "You'll have a fighter escort to get you through their defenses. Once you're on board, it's up to you." Minutes later, Ilara and her squad stood in the launch bay, strapping into an assault shuttle. Kira's limp was more pronounced, but her eyes burned with fierce determination. Rains checked his rifle one last time, his movements methodical. "Any regrets?" Ilara asked, her voice quiet but firm. "None," Kira said. "Let's finish this." The shuttle roared to life, its engines vibrating beneath them as it shot into the void. Human interceptors flanked them, their plasma cannons blazing as they engaged the Skalth fighters swarming the battlefield. The flagship loomed ahead, its massive silhouette cutting through the chaos like a harbinger of doom. "Brace yourselves," the pilot called out as the shuttle veered toward the flagship's underbelly. A sudden jolt rattled them as enemy fire clipped the shields. "We're taking hits, but we'll make it." Ilara gripped the overhead rail as the shuttle dove toward a narrow maintenance bay. The pilot executed a sharp maneuver, threading the craft through a gap in the flagship's defenses before setting it down with a metallic thud. "We're in," he shouted. "Go, go, go." The squad poured out of the shuttle, weapons at the ready. The air inside the flagship was acrid, filled with the hum of alien machinery and the distant sounds of Skalth soldiers rallying. Ilara led the charge, her rifle sweeping the corridor as they advanced toward the shield generator. The generator chamber was a cavernous space, its alien walls veined with shimmering conduits of energy. A rhythmic hum echoed through the room, vibrating the air as the core pulsed with an almost lifelike intensity, its glow a warning of immense, volatile power. Skalth guards flanked the room, their grotesque forms bristling with weapons. Ilara raised a fist, signaling her squad to take positions. Kira, take the left flank. Rains, cover me, she ordered. We hit them hard and fast. No mistakes. The squad moved like clockwork, their weapons barking fire as they engaged the guards. Ilara surged forward, her shots precise as she aimed for critical points. One by one the Skalth fell, but reinforcements poured in, their numbers seemingly endless. We're running out of time? Rains shouted, his voice barely audible over the cacophony of battle. Ilara's gaze locked onto the generator core, its energy pulsating faster as the battle raged. She made a snap decision. Kira, Rains, cover me. I'm setting the charges. The weight of her words settled over them, but they didn't hesitate. You heard her. Kira yelled, unleashing a torrent of fire to hold back the reinforcements. Ilara sprinted toward the core, her hands deftly attaching high-yield explosives to its base. The hum of the generator grew deafening, its glow intensifying as if sensing its impending destruction. Charges set. Ilara shouted, retreating toward her squad. Fall back to the shuttle. The squad fought their way out, every step a battle against the relentless Skalth. By the time they reached the shuttle, their ammunition was nearly spent, and exhaustion clung to them like a second skin. The pilot didn't wait for a signal. The moment the last soldier was aboard, the shuttle launched into the void, its engines roaring against the pull of danger. Behind them, the charges ignited in a blinding cascade, the generator's destruction triggering a violent chain reaction. Explosions rippled outward, fracturing the flagship's massive frame and hurling debris across the battlefield. The flagship shattered, its destruction marking a decisive blow against the Skalth fleet. A wave of relief swept through the human fleet as the Skalth ships fractured and fled, their cohesion dissolving without the flagship's command. Exultant cheers echoed across the ships, a defiant declaration of survival and victory against impossible odds, their formation breaking without the flagship's command. On board the cruiser, Ilara collapsed into a seat, her head falling back against the wall. The children, safe and sound, crowded around her, their eyes shining with gratitude. You did it, Kira said, her voice hoarse but triumphant. Ilara managed a tired smile. We did it. Commander Briggs' voice crackled over the comm. The Skalth are retreating, but this victory is only a reprieve. The war will demand more from all of us. Rest while you can, we'll need your strength soon. The Skalth fleet is retreating. We've won the battle, but the war isn't over. Rest while you can. Ilara closed her eyes for a moment, the tension of the battle easing as her thoughts lingered on the children's safety and her squad's unwavering courage. Each sacrifice, each grueling step of the fight, had been worth it to see hope reignite in their eyes. We'll be ready, she said softly, her voice carrying the unyielding resolve of humanity. The stars outside the viewport shone brighter, as if mirroring the spark of hope ignited in the hearts of everyone aboard. Humanity had stood its ground, and for now that was enough.